Lotus has always been one of Britain's best loved, but not necessarily best backed sports car manufacturers. Well, now it's different. Under Geely ownership, things are happening. Some of those are secret, but one of them is very, very public indeed. And it's this. It is a brand new all-electric hypercar.
And it's called the Lotus Evija. Evija. Well, but I suspect we'll all be calling it the Evija or Vajazzle before too long. Apparently it means the first in existence, and actually the badge written backwards looks like the word alive, which is quite naff or quite cool depending on who you ask. There is not a physical badge on this prototype though, which was still called the Type 130 at the time we filmed it. 130 roughly fits Lotus's nomenclature, but also because the company will build no more than 130 Evijas. For more up-close and personal videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you turn on notifications, you'll never miss one of Autocar's video.
Now, we don't have loads of technical detail, but I can tell you quite a lot about the design, and it kind of reminds me of watching a film that you like the first time, and then you go back and you watch it again, and you notice loads of little details that you didn't see before. So beyond the initially clean shape, what I like about it, it's got this line across the front. If you remember the earlier Lan from the 1960s, it does have a very sharp line across the front that the headlights then sit above. Absolutely the same here. The body on this is all carbon fibre, and this badge is effectively bare carbon fibre underneath the paint with just this ring and this badge bit dropped in. It's a really clever, neat touch. And beneath that is where all the decent aero stuff starts to happen. Now, because of the packaging of an electric car, you can be a bit more flexible about where you put things. That allows you to open up the space through the car to do things with aero. It's a theme that quite a lot of car manufacturers are experimenting with at the moment. So with this kind of Evora XZ-shaped nose thing here, you can see air coming in, and then if you walk around, there are aerodynamic-shaped carbon fibre wishbones and stuff, and it comes out here. That relieves air pressure underneath this haunch and pulls air down the side of the car. Also, this haunch is another bit of a Lotus trait. If you sit in the cockpit, you can see the wings, which makes the car, this is about 2 meters wide, it makes it much easier to place on the road. And then as it swoops along, again, the air goes into this entrance here, and then we'll have a look from the back. You can see that the air that comes in through the side exits here in the inside of these vast rear, tail and brake lights. Now, initially, this was sculpted right out, but when it comes to aerodynamic efficiency, a nice clean brake keeps air really clean and stops any turbulence. So it is cut off there, then exits. There's also a massive amount of aerodynamics underneath, and there is active aero in that this rear wing goes up and you can stall the rear diffuser. And underneath this panel here is the charging socket. It's figured you'll probably reverse into a parking bay, because hey, that's the right way to do it, isn't it? You won't have cables draping all over the space. Now, technical details are still slightly under wraps, but the entire body and structure is carbon fibre.
And within that chassis are mounted electric motors. We know not how many, but either 2 or 4, which can torque vector and give the car 4-wheel drive. Between them, they make a whopping 2,000 horsepower, which will make this car the most powerful production car in the world. Its rivals in those stakes are probably the Pininfarina Battista and Rimac Concept 2, which both share the same powertrain, making around 1,900 horsepower, but they're not in production yet either. So the most powerful internally combusted production car in full series production, by which I mean built in more than a handful, is currently the Bugatti Chiron at nearly 1,500 horsepower. Lotus has sought the help of Williams Advanced Engineering, which supplies batteries for Formula E racers, so has form in this area. This is, I guess, not unlike Lotus seeking an engine from Toyota. Williams are the powertrain experts here after all. And the Evija will have a 70 kilowatt-hour battery capable of being charged at 350 kilowatts, which Lotus says will give it a charge time of 18 minutes, and it'll have a range of around 250 miles on the WLTP cycle. Now, that's a smaller battery than either the Pininfarina or the Rimac will come with, and so the Lotus is a little bit lighter too. Those two, like the Bugatti Chiron, weigh almost 2 tons. Lotus is claiming the lightest version of the Evija will weigh 1,680 kilos. That's a lot for a Lotus, more than pretty much any other Lotus, but it is not a lot for an electric hypercar. We've got a few more figures. At 4.6 metres long, it's of average length. 2 metres wide is relatively normal for a supercar / hypercar. And 1.12 metres high is not very high at all. And the big numbers then, Lotus is claiming a 0 to 62 mile an hour time of under 3 seconds, 0 to 186 miles an hour in under 9 seconds, and a top speed in excess of 200 miles an hour.
Joining me inside his car, actually, is Russell Carr, who is the design director for Lotus. Russell, this feels to me, design-wise, pretty much finished, isn't it? This is how it will look when it reaches the road.
This is pretty much how it's going to be on the road, yes.
Yeah. It's pretty spacious, it's comfortable, it's beautifully finished. Tell us what the aim of the inside is.
We wanted from the start to do something which was very pure, simple, but also had a sense of luxury, elegance about it. Certainly the spaciousness side was really important to us. We wanted this to be, if it doesn't sound ridiculous, but a usable hypercar. So we spent a lot of time getting the seating positions right and the head height and things like that inside the car. And then one of the things that creates this sense of spaciousness is this very open instrument panel. We've got a floating beam here with a very distinctive shape. We refer to that as the halo that runs around the main instrument pod. But because it's open, you obviously get a lot of light flowing through there, which I think creates a sense of space, and space is a sense of luxury as well, and certainly in this sort of car. The inspiration for this came looking at racing cars from the 1950s and 60s, where you see the structure of the car visible through the screen. In those days it was obviously tubes. Modern structures are carbon fibre. We wanted to use carbon fibre. And once we got into that, we started looking at things like wishbones on racing cars. And we looked at modern day racing bicycles as well. And that sort of informed some of the sections and forms that go in there. And that's really become a very distinctive part of this interior.
You mentioned sort of racing bikes and other engineering things which sort of expose that engineering to you. I sort of get the impression that the first time you look at this car, you look at the overall shape, and it's on the face of it, if you sit in side profile, go, it's a beautiful, simple silhouette. But actually, as you get more into it, there's so many design touches and details. To talk us through the ethos of the outside and where it's come from.
On the outside, we start with thinking what are the key factors from Lotus existing DNA we wanted to keep. And really important for us is the strong fenders, the haunches you see on the car. They're important when you're sitting inside the car, so you can see the corners of the vehicle. It helps you place the car on the track, but it's also a very emotional thing just to see the bodywork and rearwards as well. And we have the cabin sat low within those fenders, which is really important to us because our car's all about dynamics. And I think if the cabin sits low and the fenders are very pronounced, you have a sense that the car's got a low centre of gravity. But then the other side, which is very Lotus, but we've taken to another level, is the aerodynamics. It's always been part of our history. Motorsport in the 60s, one of the first teams putting wings on Formula One cars, ground effects in the 70s, etc. Streamlining right the way back in the 50s. On this car, the philosophy was we wanted to harness the airflow over the body of the car, but also through the body of the car. We're not the first people to do it, but we wanted to do it in a very sculptural manner that would give a different aesthetic to the car. So when you look at the car from outside, you see a sort of more familiar volume perhaps. We hope a very beautiful looking car. But as you walk around it, you start to see openings that go through the car, which allow the air to pass through there. And as I say, that gives it just a very different aesthetic. It sort of draws your eye through the car and over the car, which gives it a great sense of movement.
Does the fact that this is an electric vehicle, does that open up areas? Can you put things where you wouldn't normally put them, to give you more option to, as you say, open up space through the car rather than just around the outside?
It certainly gives us a lot more freedom. Yeah, you've obviously got battery packs which can be placed in certain places, and it's certainly different from a traditional combustion engine, and we've tried to exploit that as much as possible. Yeah.
You mentioned the word I haven't, which is hypercar. Between sort of road car, track car, where's the focus on it?
It's very much a road car, but obviously the performance credentials of this car mean that it can be driven on the track. Certainly from our side, the work that we've done on the aerodynamics means that it's going to be an extremely quick car, generating a huge amount of downforce, which means it can be driven at high speeds wherever you choose. Obviously, high speeds are on the track, but it's going to be a stable car wherever it's being driven fast.
Fantastic. Russell, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you want one, and there are, understand, production slots available, you can reserve an Evija for a refundable £250,000 deposit towards a final price of somewhere between £1.5 and £2 million plus local taxes. Production starts next year and Autocar will be there all the way, including, we hope, a drive when it is launched. If you'd like to not miss that, don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on notifications, and you'll be there with us as we find out more about the world's greatest cars.